Welcome.
To the New Mexico Momcast. I'm Vanessa Bush.
And I'm Becca Lusko-Toops. The New Mexico Momcast is a show from ABQ Mom for local moms as we navigate raising our kids in the land of enchantment.
Awesome. We have a fun little question. So I feel like this time of year has turned into kind of like Halloween in the grocery store aisles where there's so many candy options. I felt like when I was a kid, it was like, do you want jelly beans or Peeps? And now there's so much.
Now there's so many. And honestly, for me, I like knowing what people prefer because if you like jelly beans and Peeps, we're not the same.
Okay.
I feel like that's the classification of people, and those people are die hard. They like to put their Peeps in the microwave. Like, do you like Peeps?
I hate Peeps.
I'm not a Peeps person.
No, Peeps are gross. I do like gourmet jelly beans, like really nice ones, Jelly
Fancy
Belly.
ones. Yeah. I'm definitely team chocolate. I like the Cadbury eggs.
Oh, the Reese's eggs
Yes.
are amazing, and I love them so much. And
Reese's has made that an entire thing where it's like you want Reese's shaped as a president's head for President's Day? We've got it.
What other holiday can we celebrate? We can mold these things any way you want.
When I was a kid, one of my grandfathers lived in Canada, and every year for Easter, he'd send us from the specialty shop in Canada, and I guess it's a thing. My mom remembered the name of the shop. I can't. If I think about it, I'll put it in the show notes. But a giant, essentially a Cadbury egg. It'd be like this big. And if you want to see my hands, go on YouTube. And we'd put it in the fridge, and my mom would cut slices out of it. And we weren't allowed white refined sugar ever, but that would come, and it was like crack. It was like the most exciting thing, and it just lives rent free in my head. And I want to get one so bad just for nostalgia. So if anybody knows where I can get one of those, let me know.
I have never heard of this, like chocolate that you slice with a knife, but I'm on board. Board.
Well, because the Cadbury eggs are like runny, like a egg yolk, but if you get it cold, then you can slice it. So then it kind of solidifies.
But it's not a Cadbury product.
No, it's from a different. It's not a Cadbury product. It was from like a specialty shop, I think.
I wonder if Whole Foods Market has them because they have that whole section of things from different countries.
I'm gonna go check. I'm gonna check it out.
Well, tell us about our guest today.
We have Kate on the podcast today, and she is a mom, a local mom. She was an ABQ Mom contributor, and she is an actor and just well-respected and really kind of accomplished a lot. And I'm always impressed by people who work in the film industry and balance a family life as well, because I've dabbled in it a little bit. And I know what those hours look like. I know how demanding it is. Like, you don't see anyone or anything. You work, sometimes 12-hour days on set, overnight, and then flip and then come back and work the next day. And it's really exhausting, but really impressive that she's made a name for herself in that.
And she's just such a fun person to be around. So I'm looking forward to hearing her story and what she has to say.
Well, hello, Kate Bergeron. I have you here. Thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I just love that we have so much film here in New Mexico that's accessible. And we've been watching a lot of movies, specifically adventure movies with my kids lately. And I'm like, that's New Mexico. That's New Mexico. And it's so exciting to see that and recognize like our home.
It is. Yeah. It's very fun playing Spot New Mexico as you're watching stuff for sure.
Yeah. So first and foremost, how did you get into acting? Tell me about your kind of origin story there.
Well, so I grew up in Portland, Michigan. It's a very small town. It's the only Portland no one's ever heard of. But we had an amazing children's theater program. So I grew up doing summer theater for 6 weeks every summer, since I was 6. And all the way up till I was 18. And then I moved to Chicago and went and got a musical theater degree. And I just kind of knew pretty early on that I wanted to do acting. Although for a little while, I basically just wanted to be Mariah Carey. And then it switched to acting. So yeah, I started there.
Okay, but you did musical theater, so and obviously you're a singer as well. So you
I
have,
am.
and you're classically trained with your theater degree. All right. So how did you kind of break into the industry, into film?
Well, so I started when I was in Chicago. I got my SAG card, my union card, doing a commercial in Chicago,
Mhm.
and then there was a lot of independent film there, and there wasn't really a lot of TV at the time when I was there. It kind of came in as when I moved to LA, but there was a lot of indie film, so it was a great place to kind of feel what it was like on set. And then, of course, they've got an amazing improv community, which I was a part of at Second City, and then I was doing theater and musical theater and singing in bands. I actually met my husband singing in a band in Chicago. So yeah, there's just a lot of arts in the Midwest, and I was really lucky.
Interesting. I guess I don't realize that. I've heard a lot of comedy and things like that, but that's really cool that like, kind of spawned there, and that you met your husband as well singing. What was the name of the band you were singing in?
Chameleon World. It's more
Okay.
than a band; it's a world. And actually, it's this very fun, like artsy band because it was run by this guy Ray St. Ray, the singing cab driver, who is literally a cab driver in Chicago. He's kind of this local legend. You get into his cab and he sings to you, and he writes all this music. And so I performed in his band, and that's where I met my husband. So it was wild.
Excellent. That's really great. Oh my gosh. So what brought you and your husband to New Mexico?
So we were in Los Angeles and we had our second child and we were living in an apartment. The rents kept going up and, the neighbor's cigarette smoke was blowing into our baby's room and we just wanted a different life,
Mhm.
and New Mexico was sort of the closest market where I knew I could work here because the industry was kind of picking up here. I knew I could work here, but I could still get back to Los Angeles when I needed to. And I gotta say, it was like the best decision we ever made. We moved here about 6 months before everything shut down. So,
Wow.
that was a little rough in some aspects, but on the other hand, we had a yard, we had space, to really lock it down. And so, yeah, we've loved it very much. We love the pace of life. We love the nature. We, just really enjoy it here. It was a great
Oh, that's
move.
great.
Yeah.
That's great. So what is it? What does your husband do? Is he in the industry as well?
He's not. He's a web developer, but he's also a drummer. He's a musician.
Mhm.
So, we understand each other in terms of the arts and can cover for each other for gigs and all that. But he's a web developer as well.
So what different roles have you had since you've been working in film? What movies and films and projects have you worked on?
So the most recent stuff is I worked on Dark Winds, which shot here. Yeah, I'll tell you about the stuff that shot here. That's
Yeah, there you go.
the exciting stuff. Yeah, so I worked on Dark Winds. I worked on Outer Range, which is a Prime show, which unfortunately was canceled. And I worked on The Really Loud House, which is a Nickelodeon show, which also shoots here. So those are the
I think
most
I have
recent
a few
things.
friends that work in the makeup department on
Oh,
the Really Loud
wonderful.
House. Yeah, and I've done well. So, elephant in the room. How do you juggle all of that and the hours that go along with working on these projects, and then also your family and your children?
Yeah, so my job is feast or famine. I'm working, when I was on Dark Winds, I was there for a number of weeks, but they were kind of on and off weeks because we were dealing with COVID shutdowns and stuff at the time.
Mhm.
But then in between, I'm working from home, and most of my job is trying to get the next job. So in between actual gigs, I am home and I'm able to be there when my kids come home from school. They go to a family school, so they're only there half days.
Mhm.
So I'm really, I use their school time as my sacred work time. And then when they're home from school, I can try to turn around and give them my full attention and be present with them for the afternoons. And that's super important to me. Um, and then when I'm on set, I'm just incredibly lucky because my husband works from home
Okay.
and we've built our lives around the knowledge that I might have to drop everything and leave and go work because that's how it is. You don't get a lot of warning usually.
No.
It's kind of be ready to jump when they say jump. So I'm just very lucky the way we have set it up. We don't have family here. I think that it would be very helpful if we had extended family here that we could lean on. But I am very lucky in that he has a very flexible understanding boss and can jump in and take over, when needed.
Certainly. Yeah. So, how old are your children?
So I have a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old.
Okay. So you're still definitely in the throes of it, but they're like somewhat self-sufficient. Like they can probably get themselves dressed, all those sorts of
Yes,
things.
starting
Yeah.
to get there. Yeah, that's great.
But you spoke about like when you were in LA and your children are small, what was the difference then? How was was it a big struggle balancing, work and being on set and having small, young children, even though obviously your husband's very helpful and supportive in that way?
Yeah, it's really tough. And actually, I was recurring on a show called Speechless when I had my second child and, got the call being like, have you had the baby yet? Have you had the baby yet? Can you go back on set? And I thought I was going to be taking the baby to set with me in that first week after giving birth. But then they ended up writing the character out for that episode. So it's very, just knowing you have to kind of be ready to roll with whatever comes is really tough. And I hired babysitters. Before I had kids, my day job when I wasn't working is I would go babysit and I would nanny and I would take care of different children. And it's something I've always loved, and I worked as a teacher for a while back in Chicago and have taught a lot of acting and theater and stuff like that. So kids have always just been a part of my life. They're important to me. And so I felt very comfortable hiring a nanny or a sitter to come in and cover some hours for me. And I know a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people I know just have never really gotten a sitter and gotten out. But it's been a really important part of our life to bring in some help.
Absolutely. And I don't think that's anything in any way to be ashamed of, like recognizing where you need help, or asking for that and supporting yourself and doing something, on your own terms and not just being a mother and something that your children are going to look up to you and be proud of you. Do they recognize that you're working in the industry or that's mom on TV?
It's funny. They do sometimes. I mean, I'm just mom. So they'll come in and I'm in my studio now and they'll come and sit in my studio while I'm auditioning sometimes. And they think that's pretty cool to like watch me audition. But, I showed them an episode of the Loud House that I was on and they didn't recognize me at all. I was staring at them like, yeah, you're going to catch it. You're going to notice. And they did not catch it. And I had to rewind and be like, who's that? Who's that? And they were like, I don't know. Like it took them a second to recognize me. So, I'm not sure how much they care, what I do. It's just a job to them. And, my daughter was, we were filling out some stuff for some theater camps and they were asking about like, have you worked with any acting teachers or coaches? And I was like, you've worked with your mom. Like she's done a short film with me. She was like, yeah, whatever, mom. Like that doesn't count,
That's not real.
No, that's not a real acting coach. I don't care if that's what you actually do. That does not count. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with kids, you're just mom. You're super mom, but you're just mom still. Mm-hmm. That's great. How do you prepare? So you mentioned you have your studio there and probably that's where you do a lot of your audition tapes and things. How do you prepare for a role coming up depending on what's going on?
So do you mean like for auditions or for like an actual?
I mean, I guess both.
Either way.
Because I'm ignorant.
Yeah, totally. No problem. So auditions come in through my agents or my managers, depending. And usually, luckily, our union just did a thing where we now have to have 48 hours to be able to turn around and turn our audition in before it could be, instant. You got to have it in 12 hours. Wow. So that's been really wonderful to have that. There's still some circumstances where, they recast a role and they have to get it quick because it's shooting tomorrow or whatever. There's still circumstances where it's fast turnaround. But for the most part, I've got 2 days, which is great because it's hard because a lot of time the auditions come in right before I'm doing bedtime, or something like that. And I'm pretty wiped by the end of the day, as any parent can attest to, I'm sure. So I get the sides, I research the project, research who's working on the project, try to get an idea of what the tone of the project is. If it's something I can go watch, I'll watch it. But sometimes you just got to research like who the producers are, who wrote it, and see if you can get a feeling for the tone. And then I break down the script and make some choices. And then I usually walk while I try to memorize because movement really helps me get things into my brain. And then, I set up my auditions in the studio. I've got, these pull down this gray pull down background that I use a lot. And I'm very also lucky because my husband's willing to be my reader, which so he reads the other person's lines. And then, I tape it as if I'm in an audition room doing the scene. And then I edit it if I need to. I pick the takes I want and I upload it to the site that they've requested it be sent to. And then I move on with my life, because you don't hear if you got it or not. You just put it out into the abyss and they will call you if they want you.
And that's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it. And then you move on to the next one.
Is auditioning in person just not really a thing anymore?
Not in my experience, really. I mean, sometimes for callbacks, people will have in-person auditions, but it's pretty rare.
Interesting.
These days.
Do you think, was it COVID that kind of killed that with the, virtual, or has it been that way for a while?
It was moving that way before COVID, and then COVID really, drove the nail in. So that's just the way of it. And I will say there are some advantages to that, because I can go on vacation and I get an audition and I can tape it. When I booked the Really Loud House, I was in the car driving to Michigan with my family on a road trip when that came in, and I did the work in the car in the passenger seat, and then showed up at my parents' house and was like, okay, take the kids. I have to go tape this audition. You know what I mean? So it's like, you can still go live your life if you are prepared to carry your self-tape gear with you and work on the go. So there are advantages for sure.
That's really interesting. Well, what's a project maybe that you're most proud of, or that you really?
I think Dark Winds I would put up there, because that was my first long series arc where I was in multiple episodes with a storyline. I've been in multiple episodes of show, but it's kind of show up, be this character. There's no through storyline in the same way. So that was really great. And then I just did this really fun play up at Santa Fe Playhouse. We did You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, which is a wonderful, fun musical. And I got to play Lucy Van Pelt and just really wail and, get my anger out. And I had so much fun with it. And the cast was amazing. And we, that was just a real, joyful celebration in kind of some dark times. So, I loved that.
That's great. Did your kids come watch you in that?
They did. Yes, they did. And that one they were pretty enamored of, I think, because they could see me live doing the work, and my son, after, he was really into the character of Schroeder, and my son, after, pulled up a blanket and started sucking his thumb and pretending to be Schroeder. And it was pretty cute.
That's wonderful.
Linus, sorry, not Schroeder, Linus.
All right, I gotcha.
Yeah,
the blanket and the thumb.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what for you in motherhood? We're going to kind of shift gears into that role. What's the most rewarding thing for you, in being a mother?
I think the most rewarding thing for me is just laughing with my kids. We're definitely a family who values and chases laughter together. And just hearing the kids when they can't stop laughing, that is it just fills my bucket. It makes me so happy and feels like I'm doing something right,
Yeah, absolutely. Has being a mother, does that change any of the roles that you take versus what you would have taken it earlier on in your career? Does that steer you?
Yeah, it definitely does. I will say, especially with theater, because theater is such a longer commitment of time, most TV and film roles, you're working, a day or a few days or a couple weeks or a few weeks. But theater is generally at least a 6-week commitment. For a lot of the larger theaters, it's longer than that. So that's hard,